All right, we're here with Ryan from Cool to Be Conscious. He's made the trip up from the Gold Coast to visit at our HQ, and he's going to take the team through some breath work. There's a lot of overlap between what we do with balance and what he does with breath work, or at least a part of what he does. So yeah, what are you going to take us through?
Oh man, I'm excited. And just firstly, I think the correlation between working from the bottom up is such a reflected industry in what we do. You know, essentially you're working from the feet up, impacting the whole entire body. I'm working from the breath up, which I believe is essentially the same thing, the foundation of our living, the way that we move and connect with our body. So I'm excited to take you guys through some functional breathing, but also performance breath work, just so you can get a better understanding of how the breath is impacting the body, the nervous system, and how that correlates to our movement within our system.
Sweet, yeah. I'm keen to experience it, and then we'll put you through your paces on the balance.
Test the feet out.
Yeah. Let's do it.
What I want to start with is just some really simple observation of where your breathing is right now. We predominantly measure our mechanics of breathing with the high and low test. Essentially, where is our breath going? Is it going high into our chest, or is it coming down a lot more lower into the diaphragm? Now, I like to use the word diaphragm more than belly, because essentially a deep breath is actually when the diaphragm is being engaged and being used, and a shallow breath is when the chest is just moving and there's no diaphragmatic movement. When people say a belly breath, a deep belly breath, like I can connect with it, but you can push your belly out and accentuate the belly without engaging the diaphragm, just with your abdominal muscles, especially those that have a strong core. You can push your belly out, yeah? But the challenge, or what I see as the practice, is to engage the intercostal muscles. Do we all know where they are located? At the bottom of the ribs. So if you place your hands just underneath the rib cage here, the bottom two ribs is where we can connect with intercostal muscles. And as you breathe in, the intercostal muscles open. And as you breathe out, the intercostals close down. So it's a squeezing and a tightening and an opening. On the inhale, opening. And on the exhale, closing. I'll give you a little bit of example, just with my stomach. So this is what a lot of people refer to as a deep breath. Pushing of the belly. Whereas what you're looking to actually activate here is the intercostals, which you can, when you get used to the muscle, you can actually single them out. They look like gills. So when you're breathing deep, you want to see that expand, and as you exhale, they're closing. Expand, closing. So as the breath comes deeper into the diaphragm, the lungs drop lower, and we get more of a gas exchange of the oxygen that we're bringing in from the atmosphere, essentially, in short, in essence. So day-to-day breathing, we predominantly want to focus on deepening being the activation of the diaphragm more than anything. Soft, light nose, slow breathing, day-to-day functional breathing. We also measure our breathing by a biomechanical dimension. Biomechanics is what we just looked at, whether we're breathing high or low, essentially, chest or stomach, diaphragm area. Biomechanics is what chemistry is changing in the blood, essentially. How much air are we breathing in and how much air are we breathing out? Are we over-breathing? As I talk, you'll notice that I'm mouth breathing a lot of the time, and it's because I need to use a lot more words and get more air in faster. If I was practicing my functional breathing with you guys, you'd get pretty sick of me taking nice slow breaths in between my sentences. So when I'm teaching, when I'm sharing breath, I actually am so exhausted at the end of the day because I'm mouth breathing for predominantly most of the session, because I need to do that in order to get more words through and teach more. So nose, light, slow and low functional breathing patterns from a biomechanical standpoint. Biochemical, how much air are we transmitting, what's changing in correlation to our exhale and inhale, and how much air are we moving essentially through our system. So someone yourself might be breathing 4 to 6 litres a minute, which is our optimal levels of air that we want to be moving through our system. You might be breathing 10 to 15 litres of air through your system, which is what we correlate as someone that is stressed. 20 litres and above is someone that is having a panic attack or is really stressed out. They're moving a lot of air through their system. As we exhale and blow off carbon dioxide, CO2, we essentially take away the opportunity for our hemoglobin to offload more oxygen into our muscle tissue. So when we're feeling stressed, we breathe more as a byproduct of that, because we think we need more oxygen. We get stressed, we lose our breath, we get panicked, we get caught up in the hyperventilation, blowing off CO2. But in turn, that practice or that way of breathing blows off the CO2, which then inhibits our ability to absorb the oxygen from the atmosphere. So there's this really damaging loop cycle of dysfunctional breathing patterns. So as people overbreathe, they're blowing off more CO2, which causes this effect of, I'm not getting enough air, or panic, which makes them breathe even more. And that essentially folds further into their way of living because they just feel panicked and anxious all the time. And usually it's because they're just breathing in a very dysfunctional manner. So high and low is what we just looked at then, where you're breathing into your stomach or into your chest. If you can course correct that or alter and change that as much as you can through the day, that is the practice, and to keep the breathing in that through the nose. The nose has 30 essentially mechanisms that it's impacting through our day-to-day life. The filter, the warmth of air that we're bringing in, the nitric oxide, which assists so many biological parts of our body, and a whole host of others. So nasal breathing is a big one, changing the way that we're breathing and how we're breathing from a biomechanical and biochemical standpoint. So essentially with those 3 exercises, you can prescribe and share these with your clients. It's such a great way to create rapport, but also bring them into a more relaxed state before you start sharing new knowledge, practices and skills with them. You know, you want to make sure they're in a really open, receptive state of being. So exercise 1, which was our small breath holds, is a great one. You just get them laying down in a position where they're comfortable, they feel cozy, they feel neutral, and you're essentially guiding them through this really easy breathwork practice to follow. You're going to count them into a hold, breathing in, breathing out, holding the breath. 3, 2, 1, breathing back in. Breathing normal for 10 seconds. So that's the recovery in between each round. And then count them into the next exhale, holding at the bottom. 3, 2, 1. So what you're doing through that practice is you're bringing more CO2 into the body via the holds at the bottom. So we're not offloading carbon dioxide, we're holding it at the bottom, and what this is going to do is offload more oxygen into the blood, which creates this diffusing or relaxing sensation for them in their brain. Because what stress and where stress comes from is the overbreathing, is the lack of blood flow to the brain as we overbreathe. Because as we overbreathe and as we're stressed, blood goes to our biceps, blood goes to our quads to run away from this perceived danger. So essentially to diffuse that or to reverse that is with exercise 1, the small breath holds. Holding at the bottom for 3 to 5 seconds, breathing back in, breathing normal for 10 seconds, and then into the second round, so on and so forth. Exercise 2, which is a breathing light practice, another really great one and really simple to guide. All you're doing is inviting them to breathe minimally, breathing as little and as lightly as they can. So you get them to focus on the follicles of here and their nose and just say, hey, see if you can tune in to the sensations that are coming up for the hair follicles in your nose, and see if you can just slow down the inhalation and exhalation ever so little with each breath, and get them to attune themselves to that slight feeling of air hunger. And that's where you want them to sit throughout the duration of the practice. Just guide them through that there for 2 minutes. And again, that'll just create a lot of relaxation for them and softening into the body. Exercise 3 is when we lay down. We placed our hands on our lower rib cage. This is the diaphragmatic activation. Really great as well for them. You can flow through exercises 1 to 3 from start to finish. It can take you 5 to 6 minutes. It's a great way just to start your sessions. Exercise 3 is when we are focusing on the activation of the intercostal muscles, the diaphragm, the deepening of the breath. So getting your client to place their hands on their lower ribs as they breathe in, just focusing on the expansion, the opening. As they breathe out, feeling that contraction or that closure of the diaphragm. That is the mechanism that we're focusing mostly on here. And just guiding them through that practice for 3 to 4 minutes is going to be a game changer as well. We stimulate the vagus nerve here, which is in accordance to our parasympathetic nervous system, which is so supportive when it comes to receiving information, creating safety, creating rapport.
We are big believers in the power of breath, especially as it relates to the feet. There is actually a lot of fascial connections between what's going on here at the trunk, in the diaphragm, and the feet. So our breath will literally impact the stability of our feet as well as our balance. All right, so we just wrapped up a fun session, and yeah, we were just talking about how, well, breathing and balancing can seem a bit boring, I think, to most people, something that they maybe won't bother to practice, they don't know how, or yeah, it just doesn't look that inspiring. But when you have some skills and you have some constraints to work around and play with, then it actually can be very engaging and very fun, as we found out from you and as you found out from us. But yeah, really appreciate you coming along and hanging out and showing us what you do.
No, it's been my pleasure, and thanks for showing me a lot about the fundamentals of footwork. And as you said, I think it's so overlooked, both breathing and connecting our feet to the ground and using them in a much more, I'd say, optimal way. You know, and that fatigued me, that humbled me massively, and I don't wear shoes, so I've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
so thanks for having me, man.
Pleasure, anytime.
Awesome.
I look forward to versing you again and teach the hacky.
Give me a month.
Yeah.